It's important to properly dispose of unwanted medication or sharps. MedProject offers free and convenient disposal options near you. To learn more, call 844-MedProject or visit medproject.org.
With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Join us as we seek the truth and travel the long road to justice. What's going on, everybody? It's Saturday. We are back late with another episode, but you're spending a few nights here because you move in Monday to your new place.
Yep.
We're going to go clean it tomorrow.
Yep.
We're just going to put some AirPods in. We got a whole group going. Going to get it spick and span ready for you. So we're able to do these late ones, and it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
So
sleepover.
Yeah. It's like high school all over again, except I'm an old lady. So when I have my fill, I shut and lock my door and go to bed. We started a movie last night. My kids, I've always wanted my teenagers to watch Friday with me because it's just so funny. And I fell asleep first 10 minutes. I only was woken up. I was woken up by the kids laughing randomly.
Yeah, you old.
I finally just got up and went to bed. Your mama's old.
True.
So sorry, Priscilla. So we want to thank Gemma for the PayPal donation. Very unexpected and sweet. We appreciate
That's a cool way to spell that.
Gemma is a beautiful name.
It is. It's cool.
With a G.
Yeah.
And we also want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Two Cool T-Shirt Quilts. Go to twocooltshirtquilts.com/Pretty Lies and Alibis and see what she can do with your old T-shirts. So we're going to keep up with the Murdaugh case. Because we had that document dump a couple of weeks ago, I have been nonstop doing Valo stuff. Yep. And a lot of things have come out about the Murdaugh case. Not about the current investigation, but specifically into the investigation into Stephen Smith's death. Now, for those of you who don't remember, it was rumored that Stephen Smith, who was found dead in the middle of the road, and as we know, the Murdaughs were named several times throughout the course of the investigation. It was rumored, and we don't usually do rumor, but it's been reported on a lot of major news outlets that maybe some motivation for his death was that it was going around that Buster, which is Paul Murdaugh's brother, Paul was the one that was found shot with his mother, may have had something going on with Stephen Smith.
Uh-oh.
And that could be a motivation for why he died. Before we get into this investigation with the Stephen Smith stuff, though, tell us about Fitz News, who is the go-to source on this case. All this information we got from Fitz News, by the way.
They're out of the lower part of the state, right?
Yeah, they are. And Mandy's been working very hard on this case. I'll tell you, follow her on Twitter. I will tweet out her name and the link to the news site. Several people have asked. But what they just got the death certificate for Paul, and what did it say?
It was. It says he died of gunshot wounds to the chest and face. The time of death is listed as 9 p.m. He was cremated.
Yes, and Fitz News got that scoop way before they got the death certificate. As of right now, they have not been given Maggie's death certificate. So that's kind of the latest on the double murder down there. So we're going to look into the investigation into Stephen Smith's death. Now, if you guys remember, we did a little bit about this about a month ago where there was some confusion of whether it was a gunshot wound right above his eyebrow and his forehead, or if it was a hit and run with a car. We're going to go through all that, and you're going to be able to see how this just stinks to high heaven.
Yeah.
It's really, really obvious that things were being covered up to keep certain last names out of it completely. So until the double murder happened with Paul and Maggie, they were investigating, the South Carolina Highway Patrol was still investigating this as a hit and run. And due to information that was found in the investigation into the murders of Paul and Maggie, it sparked the case to be kind of looked at again. And SLED, which is the state law enforcement division, took this over. And Stephen's mother said it is now being investigated as a homicide, which makes total sense if you read all this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So let's learn a little bit about Stephen from what his mom said.
So his mom said he was born at 2 pounds, 12 ounces. He was given a 50-50 chance of survival. He was a smart kid. Sorry. Still got that crazy throat
It's
stuff.
very lingering. Me too.
I know, right?
Yeah, I have a lot of congestion still, a lot of stuffy nose.
But it's not COVID.
No, I hope not. I don't think
No,
so. But I've been really tired. I took another nap today, and
Yeah. We had some tests, and it was not COVID.
oh, that's good.
Yep. Buying books for chore money and wanting to get a nursing degree so he could save to go to medical school. He was in school at Orangeburg Technical College the night he died.
Yeah, so he was found dead in the middle of the road on July 8th, 2015. So it's been just a little over 6 years. And what they found was he had a 7 1/4 inch hole in his head, and that was kind of the extent of the injuries, other than some road rash.
Yeah.
So a South Carolina Highway Patrol investigator, his name is Todd Proctor, he said it looked to him like his body had been put in the road, not that it was just there from a hit and run. And so the call came in at 3:57 a.m. in Hampton County, and a man called saying that he had seen Stephen lying in the road. So at 5:37 a.m., 2 officers with the South Carolina Highway Patrol, they're communicating back and forth, and one says it's a possible hit and run with no injuries besides the head area.
Yeah, that's odd.
Yeah.
At 6 a.m., South Carolina Highway Patrol officers communicate saying that SLED is taking over because it appears Stephen has a possible gunshot wound to the head.
Right. And Sergeant Allen from the South Carolina Highway Patrol, there are a lot of names, guys, and we're trying to put South Carolina Highway Patrol or whatever agency they're with, because there are a lot of names, and maybe I'll just, after this episode is over, I'm going to tweet out. Yep, dude, it's late. I don't function after 10. It's 10:09. Just be grateful I'm even talking at this point. So Sergeant Allen from the South Carolina Highway Patrol tells Sergeant Moore, who's also with the Highway Patrol, that this is a homicide, and to be sure that the coroner rules it as one. So early on, and this is the thing, we know that eventually it was classified as a hit and run. You think all these investigators are stupid? They know a wound from a projectile when they see one. And, and very quickly, everybody on scene said this was a gunshot wound. So at 6:25 a.m., the coroner, whose name is Ernie Washington, shows Sergeant Moore what he says was a projectile entry point in Stephen's head.
Yeah, like I've known people who get run over and they have more injuries than just head.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
If you remember, it was said that maybe a mirror of a truck got him. At first they said like I think an 18-wheeler or something. You said, how tall was he?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the deputy coroner Kelly Green also showed Sergeant Moore a photo of Stephen's body and points. Oh wait, you said that? No, you didn't.
Nope, keep going, girl.
Points out an entry point and a defensive wound seen on his hand.
Mm-hmm. So Sergeant Moore asks both coroners if they're sure it's a homicide, and they both said yes. So you had Washington, who was the coroner, and then Kelly Green is the deputy coroner. Both of them agree that is a gunshot wound to his head.
Oh, yeah. It says his shoes were tied loosely on his feet. It doesn't make sense if he was walking from his car, not running. I will say this. Everyone I've known that's got hit by a car, and I've known several, it knocks you out of your shoes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that sounds like they were still on him. I don't know exactly, but maybe they were just loose. But
right. But if you think about it, the story that they kind of pieced together was that something had happened to his car, because when they found the car, the gas cap was screwed off and it was just hanging down on the side of the car. So I think at the time the theory was he had run out of gas and he was walking. If you're walking a long distance, because he was found 3 miles away from his car, you're not going to have your shoes loose. You get blisters.
Exactly.
3 miles later, no way.
Exactly.
So when Sergeant Moore walked the crime scene, he said he didn't see any debris from a hit and run. And then he made all the units on scene clear out so that he could get a good look. Because if you get hit with a car, you're going to knock stuff off that car.
Oh, most definitely. There'll be a piece somewhere.
Yeah.
Happens on CSI all the time.
All right.
Yep. So, what was I saying? Oh, you were
at 8:25 a.m. SLED agents.
Mine went out of screen. I'm running without a mouse over here, so it's weird. I took my mouse to the theater and I forgot to bring it back.
I keep telling you, bring your mouse back.
Yeah.
And you're like, I got it.
And I'm like, yep, got it. No, I don't. It's still sitting there.
So at 8:25 a.m., SLED agents Talon and Burke arrived to the scene. Talon makes a note that EMS said a gunshot wound was seen on Stephen's head.
Yep. It should be noted that Hampton County Coroner's Office had moved the body before SLED got to the scene, though.
I mean, why? I can understand EMS getting there and trying to do some kind of life-saving stuff, but why would the coroner move the body if this is a hit and run? Because if it's a hit and run or a murder, it's still a crime.
Exactly.
That's weird.
Yep. So the report by Talon and Burke says that they located a hole in Stephen's skull above the right eye, but says it was unclear if the hole was from a firearm. He had blood all over his right arm, but there were no injuries present.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. I mean, maybe from the head wound, because they said that his head was misshapen from the injury. So it was pretty brutal. They did see minor injuries to the left arm, his hands, and his head. And his hands were bagged for any kind of evidence. And a key was found in his pocket, but nothing else. So they gave the key to the Hampton County Sheriff's Office.
Yep. So at 9:20 a.m., SLED goes to where Stephen's car was found. And remember, it was 3 miles away, and his mother said he would have never walked that far alone.
Yeah, especially at night.
Yeah.
So they got a search warrant for the car, and they noted the gas cap was off, and the doors to the car were locked. So they used the key that they found on Stephen to unlock the doors. The battery had a charge, but the car would not start.
Yeah. So his wallet was in the car. That was given to investigator Stapleton of Hampton County Sheriff's Office. SLED and Hampton County Sheriff's Office says that the South Carolina Highway Patrol are not needed at the autopsy.
Yep, because I think at this point, they're still thinking that it's a gunshot wound. And so at that point, the Highway Patrol, it would go over to SLED and the Sheriff's Office. So the agents, Talon and Burke, they're SLED agents. They attended the autopsy, which was done at the Medical University of South Carolina. There, it was decided the head wound was not caused by a shooting, but it was from being struck by a vehicle.
Yep. So the autopsy was done by Dr. Aaron Presnell of MUSC and ruled the cause of death was from a vehicle strike.
Right. So during the autopsy, they showed the big 7.25-inch laceration on the right side of his head above the eye. He had bruising on both sides of his forehead. The right skull had a lot of fractures, bruising, and contusion, and he had a cut on his right eyebrow.
The right shoulder is dislocated, a small cut inside the left arm, cuts and bruises on the right hand and fingers, cuts on his right arm, including a 6-inch irregular cut on the inside of his right arm, 12 to 3-inch abrasions on his right arm, and blood in his airway.
So they officially listed the cause of death as blunt force trauma, or blunt head trauma that was sustained in a motor vehicle crash where he was hit by a car. That's what was put on there.
So Sergeant Moore from South Carolina Highway Patrol calls the coroner, Washington, and asked if he agreed this was a hit and run. Washington said that he would have to go with Dr. Presnell's ruling. Moore reminded Washington that earlier at the scene, they were certain it was a gunshot wound, and Washington said he had to go with the doctor's opinion. The body was released to the funeral home at the family's request.
So you can see already the story has changed. Maybe not changed. It seems like maybe this, the coroner, Mr. Washington, just was very safely saying, hey, I have to go with the medical examiner. But it's not like he said, oh, yeah, I agree with her. I just have to go with what she says. So it just already seems a little hokey. So Sergeant Moore calls the funeral home where they had Stephen's body, and he asked if they were in possession of the clothing that Stephen was wearing. And they told him they had put the clothing in a paper bag, and the bag was with Stephen's body. But the clothes were left unattended at the funeral home, which broke the chain of custody. And I mean, potentially, who knows what happened when it's, just out there with a body.
Exactly. So Moore tells them to stop working on the body and cover him up. Moore sends someone to get the bag with the clothing in it.
Yep. So then Sergeant Moore, he calls Dr. Presnell, who did the autopsy, to try and understand why it was ruled a hit and run. And if you remember, this lady was very rude. We talked about her in a previous episode about this case. She said her opinion was it didn't look like a gunshot wound, and she didn't see any bullet fragments or any projectiles in the x-ray. So she said it had to be a motor vehicle that caused the death.
Yeah. When Moore asked about any other injuries, she says he had a partially dislocated right shoulder. He asked if she found any evidence of a motor vehicle striking Stephen, such as glass fragments. She said she did not.
Right.
That's just odd.
It is odd. But get this. When he asked her what she thought caused the injury to his head, Dr. Presnell said that was his job to figure out and not hers.
Oh, wow.
I've seen a lot. I used to watch Autopsy all the time with Dr. Michael Baden. Just a great show. If you like that kind of stuff, he's super smart. They sit there and will theorize about what caused this stuff. I mean, the investigators do too, but I mean, coroners are always trying to help put the pieces together for investigators.
Yeah. I think that's the big part of their job is figuring out who, what, when, and where, I guess, or what did it exactly.
Yeah. So then Moore instructs Corporal Rowell, who's with the South Carolina Highway Patrol, to go back to the scene and look for any kind of debris from a car. And he said he just didn't find anything.
Dude.
Yeah. I mean, that one guy was right in the beginning. It looks like the body was placed in the roadway.
Yeah.
So,
I just can't. That's just crazy.
It is crazy. I mean, it's like all of a sudden you've got these investigators that do this for a living who can't agree on a cause of death. It's like, what happened in between those hours to make them suddenly say, well, we don't know.
Yeah, duh.
So then Moore calls another deputy whose name is Altman to go to the scene and look for debris. Just like the guy before him, he found nothing. And then Moore does something that's really smart. He tells Deputy Altman to go back to the scene between 3 and 5 in the morning and watch for traffic patterns in the area during that time, because that's when they think he was hit.
That's weird.
Yeah, I think it's smart because I don't think Sergeant Moore was buying this hit and run at all.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
traffic at 3 a.m. you wouldn't think would be heavy at all.
No, and it seems like this was probably kind of a back road, just from what I gather. I've seen the Google Street View. It looks, just like a 2-lane road.
Yeah.
So Moore asks Burke, who's with SLED, if she can come to the funeral home in the morning, and he arranges for Deputy Booker with the South Carolina Highway Patrol to meet them there at the funeral home.
Wow.
So the next morning on July 9th, 2015 at 5:50 a.m., Moore sends 2 more people back to the scene again to look for debris or anything that just seems odd. They didn't find anything, so they end up and meet Moore at the funeral home.
So Burke of SLED meets Sergeant Moore at South Carolina Highway Patrol to give documentations from the scene, from the crime scene, and transfer evidence, because since it was declared a hit and run, SLED turns the investigation back over to South Carolina HP. The evidence given was khaki shorts, 2 black sneakers, black Nike t-shirt, paper bags from Stephen's hands, right and left hand fingernail clippings, pulled scalp hair, swabs from his private parts, and an oral swab, dried spot blood, and a CD with images from the autopsy. So
South Carolina Highway Patrol officers, there are 4: Booker, Rowell, Duncan, and Moore, as well as Burke from the SLED division. They examined Stephen's body at the funeral home, and the multidisciplinary accident investigation team takes photos of Stephen's body and his clothing, and they talk to Burke from SLED about what she found.
In his report, Moore of SCHP says there was no visible injuries to Stephen other than the head wound and some road rash on both his arms.
Yeah, and his family just tells Moore that they don't believe he was hit by a car. He wouldn't have been walking in the middle of the roadway because he was a very skittish person.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine if my car broke down on a 2-lane road in the middle, kind of in the middle of the night, that I would walk in the middle of the road because people fly down these little side roads or deserted roads at night. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense.
No, I would walk on the edge. Even if it wasn't a sidewalk, I'd still walk on the edge of the road. Who walks in the middle?
Yeah. I mean, nobody, I don't think that was the case here, but a lot of the stuff wasn't the case here, apparently. But Sergeant Moore, he puts in his report that he turned the clothing over. And all parties had a discussion as to why they just didn't think this was him being hit by a car.
You see it, you know different what the body looks like.
So, yeah, I mean, this Sergeant Moore, he really, this first day, the first few days, he's trying anything he can to find a speck of evidence to back up what the medical examiner is saying, which he calls what we call here in the South hogwash.
Major hogwash.
Yeah. So Sergeant Moore and 3 other deputies go back to the crime scene and they look for evidence, and they look 100 yards in both directions, but they don't find anything to indicate this was him being hit by a car.
Yeah. So 2 days later, on July 10th, 2015, Stephen's phone and clothing are sent to SLED. On July 11th, the wake for Stephen was held at the funeral home. His mother wanted an open casket so people could see what they did to him.
Yep. And I thought this was interesting. There were 3 death certificates issued for Stephen. The manner of death was listed as pending investigation, and it says the injury occurred from being hit by a motor vehicle, possibly a truck.
Wow.
So South Carolina Highway Patrol interviewed a man claiming to be Stephen's boyfriend. The family says they were not a couple, but whatever. He said that Stephen was harassed in the town and that people messed with his car battery. And he offered to take a lie detector test, and he says, I didn't hurt him. Sandy is his mother, Stephen's mother, said he had problems with a man who worked at Bilo, which is a southern grocery store chain. And he was interviewed by Detective Rowell from the Highway Patrol. And the man said he did have a brief relationship with Stephen, but he hasn't seen him in a while. And this is interesting. Rowell didn't record the interview. In fact, he didn't record any of the interviews he conducted.
That's odd.
That's suspicious.
That's weird. He says Stephen was being harassed the night of his death by rednecks in a big truck with big mud tires.
That is a needle in a haystack in South Carolina.
For real. You can go to the Walmart parking lot right now.
And you got like 30 suspects in a row.
Exactly.
So jumping ahead to July 17th, 2015, Duncan of the South Carolina Highway Patrol, they interview Stephen's family at the DMV in Hampton County. The DMV was a substation for the Highway Patrol. And they said he had been acting a little secretive and was coming home late recently, but she said she just didn't know of anybody that had a problem with him.
Yeah. They didn't believe the guy claiming to be Stephen's boyfriend, and they were skeptical.
Yeah. And so Duncan asked if any lawyers have been in contact with them, and get this, they say Randy Murdaugh was the second person to call Stephen's dad only after the coroner on the day Stephen died. He offered to take this case for free, and they were just a little skeptical, thinking it was just odd. So Duncan of the Highway Patrol, he didn't write this in his notes about Randy Murdaugh offering to take this case. Why not? Because it's a Murdaugh.
Exactly. So a relative of Stephen said the day prior was the first time she left the house since the news of his death, going to the store. She said people kept coming up to her saying, "Did you know the Murdaugh boys are behind it?" It's just crazy.
Yeah, and name Buster Murdaugh. Now, we're not saying Buster did this. This is what is in the reports. But, I mean, these people are named several times, except it's nowhere in the investigation notes of Murdaugh.
Yeah. Yep. Dude.
Yeah, so this person was telling a family member of Stephen's that the Murdaugh boys are behind it, saying Buster Murdaugh, who went to high school with Stephen, was responsible for this, as well as a few friends. And at first, the family member didn't find it credible, and they just kind of brushed it off, thinking, well, that makes no sense. And she didn't really think that Buster had been hanging around with Stephen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again,
see in the report that Roel didn't put the tip about the Murdaughs in his notes. Cover up.
Yeah.
He's the one that didn't record these interviews.
Yeah, exactly. So Duncan of South Carolina Highway Patrol called Stephen's mother, Sandy. She says Stephen had been hanging out at Bobcat Boat Landing a lot recently. Bobcat Landing is a public boat landing with access to Edisto River.
Yeah. And she said he had been cutting school some, which wasn't like him because he was super serious about his schooling. And she said the rumor around Hampton was that the Murdaugh boys did it, and she said people would come up and say it to her.
That's just horrible.
And then Duncan says the Murdaugh boys, and she says, yes, whoever they are. And Duncan does not mention this in his notes, and he didn't ask any follow-up questions.
Wow.
So we're jumping to July 22nd, 2015, which is about 2 weeks after his death.
So he says South Carolina Highway Patrol Proctor visits Dr. Presnell at MUSC, which is a medical examiner, for clarification. He says Presnell had a negative tone and basically called him a liar when he said he had already spoken with Hampton County Coroner Washington and said she would need to get his consent to talk to Proctor. Proctor offered his cell phone for her to call him, and she then backed off.
I can just sit here. You want to use my phone?
Yeah, you want to use my phone?
Just hit redial.
Here you go.
So when asked why she said it was a motor vehicle accident, she said because he was found in the middle of the road. That's crazy. A coroner should be able to say, well, the injuries that I saw during the autopsy are an indication that he was hit by a car. He was found on the road. It's crazy. And then when she asked Proctor, why do you guys think why do you not think it was a vehicle? And he said they just haven't found anything to support that it was.
Yeah. He asked if someone with a bat could have caused the head injury. She said no. When asked if the bat was used in a moving vehicle, she said, well, I guess that's possible. Then she asked if they found a bat as evidence.
What? That's just rude.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And I think this woman is still on the job because I looked, and she is. But talk about being unprofessional.
Yeah. That's crazy.
So at this point, Proctor knows we're not going to get anywhere with this conversation. And as he was leaving, she said the report was preliminary and it was his job to figure out what struck him and not her job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I'm telling you, I would not want to live down that way. Not in that area. Sheesh.
Yeah. Well, I think their time as the It family has come to a halt. I just they'll never recover from any of this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, if you remember, they had that search warrant for Paul's apartment in Columbia the day after he died, and they took computers and everything. So who knows what they found with all these search warrants for electronics and stuff. As we know, especially with the Vallow case, people are stupid, and they think, oh, I can type this out and delete it, and it's gone forever. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
So August 18th, 2015, the coroner tells Proctor that he didn't agree with the final autopsy results. And the final determination was blunt force trauma, motor vehicle crash. And the manner of death was undetermined, and the choices would be homicide, accident, suicide, natural, or undetermined. So they just put undetermined.
Wow. So the deputy coroner, Kelly Green, went to MUSC on the morning of the autopsy and spoke with Dr. Presnell. She was fired from her position after this between July 22nd and August 18th.
That's suspicious.
That's weird. She was responsible for the evidence in the case.
Yeah. So Proctor spoke to the deputy coroner Green and Burke from SLED, who were both present for the autopsy. They said they never mentioned a motor vehicle to Dr. Presnell, only that he was found in a roadway.
Wow.
So the coroner, Washington, had spoken with the pathologist, Dr. Presnell, who said she would change the report to however he wanted it to read. And the South Carolina Highway Patrol has had this case, like we said, until SLED took over after the Murdaugh murders. This is part 1. We're going to do part 2 that will be out Monday or Tuesday. And so in the second part, we're going to be looking at statements from people that knew Stephen. And it's kind of the rumor mill where everybody's contacting authorities, or a couple of times Stephen's mom gives authorities names and numbers and says you need to call this person, they know something. And it all kind of gels together. They all sort of have heard the same thing. It's really interesting stuff, but we really want to get caught back up on this case so that way if anything big happens, we're not backtracking. And our listeners kind of have what we know up to this point. Again, Fitz News, that's where we've gotten all of this information. So we want to shout them out. Go follow them on social media. It is a paywall, and I paid for it because the information is just, if you want to cover this case, you have to be following them. So check them out. And if you're really interested in this case, she gets stuff way before the public does. So we're going to do this again, and we'll have that out for you Monday or Tuesday. In the meantime, you guys enjoy your Sunday.
Yep. Good night.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.